Hello everyone, how we going? Today we are doing another League of Legends video reaction, but this one is very different to my other ones because this one isn't an official League of Legends video, but I've gotten a lot of recommendations in these comments for this specific YouTuber who is Necrit, I believe is his name. And so like big shout out to this guy because it seems like he makes some probably in-depth videos for like several people to, while I'm watching official League of Legends videos, for people to say like, oh, and you have to also watch this person who like doesn't even, as far as I know, work for Riot or anything, just makes videos on League of Legends. And like for them to be like recommended alongside official content is pretty crazy. So I'm curious to see what these videos are going to be like. But we're just going to be watching one of his videos today. It's called The World of Riot's MMO is Already Done. Now, I'll give you context on what I know going into it in a second. But if you are like new to this channel, if you haven't clicked on these videos before, hi, I'm Jent. I've done a lot of reactions, well not a lot, but a decent amount of reactions at this point to League of Legends cinematics, and I did some Tales of Runeterra trailers recently, and there was like a bunch of different stuff that I've been doing. And it's been a lot of fun to jump into this world. I haven't played much League of Legends in my time. I've played some of Legends of Runeterra, the card game. I played a decent amount of that, I guess, but that doesn't really give me, you know, that's not quite as expansive as like League of Legends, and I haven't really dove into the lore other than doing these videos. I've also watched all of Arcane, in which you can see my Season 2 reactions on this channel, not my Season 1 reactions, because I wasn't doing reaction videos when Season 1 came out, but you can see my Season 2 reactions on the channel. So, you know, at this point, I've experienced a decent amount of League of Legends stuff. Like, I would say, like, at this point, you know, like, not every League of Legends player watches the trailers and stuff, so I probably have, like, an average League of Legends lore knowledge at this point, you know? I would say, I think that's kind of fair to say, having watched all of Arcane, watched all of Arcane several times, and having seen a lot of these trailers and such, and then having you guys comment stuff about League of Legends, and having played a little bit of the card game, I think at this point I've got an average knowledge. I'm pretty proud of that, I think. So we're gonna be jumping into this video now. I don't really fully know what this video is gonna be, but it's a half an hour video. And it's called The World of Riot's MMO is Already Done. Now, I know that Riot several years ago announced an MMO, and then I think like last year or something, like in 2024, I think they said like, yeah, we've started again or something. Like they said something like, yeah, we're developing it, but we've kind of gone back to square one, I think is what they were kind of saying, so that they could make it truly unique. So it's still being worked on, but now it's like early in development, or, you know, I mean, I'm sure they haven't scrapped everything, but they probably moved like significantly back in progress. So I don't know, like, it sounds interesting. It sounds like if I was to like play this MMO, I would probably give it a shot. But this video specifically was posted in 2022. So it was a few years ago at this point, and I imagine it's going to be going over the lore of League of Legends and maybe how it can fit into an MMO space, possibly. I'm not sure, but people specifically recommended this video and a couple others, but you know, if this video does well and if you guys like my reactions to this, then please make sure to let me know, and also tell me like what other videos are worth doing, because some of them seem like they're quite long. So I mean, yeah, just let me know if, you know, they're really worth it, and you know, if there's enough interest in it, then maybe I'll do more of them. If there's not as much interest in these sorts of videos, then maybe I won't, and that'll just like kind of depend on you guys. So make sure to definitely support the video if you enjoy it. As far as I know, from what people told me, Necrit is okay with people reacting to his videos. I'm pretty sure that that was told to me, that is the case. So I hope that is indeed true, because in the same way that, you know, Riot tends to be fully fine with people reacting to their trailers, as long as they're not like the music videos, which have to be copyright struck sometimes for licensing purposes and stuff. But yeah, just like that, and just like Hoyoverse are completely okay with reactions. I'm hoping this guy is too. But definitely, please, if you have not seen this video on your own, go watch the video on your own. Support Necrit, because he's the one who put a lot of work into this video. I'm just doing what you guys suggested of me, which is to react to this video and to talk about what I like about it. So yeah, we're going to be jumping into this right now. Let's just do it. The World of Riot's MMO is already done. Here we go. Okay, let's do this.
In the past, MMOs were regarded as the godfathers of games. They were the peak
okay, it's
of
gonna be
what
one of these kinds of
developers
videos.
could accomplish. Even though, looking back, that's a fairly subjective thing to say. Everyone knew MMOs had the power to create cult following, but also everyone knew making MMOs was hard. On average, an MMO has to spend at least 6 years in the baking before it can get anywhere near being good.
Makes sense,
But
it's massive for a
didn't stop
reason.
companies from jumping onto the bandwagon anyway. And soon we could see dozens of new MMOs, all releasing in 2008, all being called the WoW killers. Spoiler alert,
None of them killed
did that.
WoW, yeah.
And unfortunately, we can feel the ripple effects even now. It got to a point where every time a new MMO is announced, we all think the same thing. Oh. Anyway, when you're working on an MMO, you have to respect 3 pillars. Gameplay is king, social interactions matter, and the world setting is important. When Riot announced their MMO, it became clear that 2 of the pillars are being respected, and the third one is already done. When it comes to the gameplay, it is currently in the hands of Ghostcrawler, someone who's been working on WoW during its best times, and someone who got a reputation for hating boomkins and loving mages.
I think I should, at this point, say, and I want to pause it so that I'm not talking over the video, because I don't want people to be upset if I'm talking over the video. But I do want to pause it to just say my experience with MMOs so that you know the context of this. I have played a few MMOs in my time, but I've never like gone so deep into an MMO. They've never completely consumed me. But for example, I've maybe played like, I don't know, if I had to guess, like 80 hours of Final Fantasy XIV online at some point. And I played a bit of New World, like maybe like 30 hours of that, 40 hours, something like that. And I think one of my most played MMOs ever was Marvel Heroes, which is shut down these days, but that was my favorite MMO ever, and I played quite a bit of that before that got shut down. I played it like up until basically the day it got shut down. I loved that MMO. So I do know a little bit about MMOs, and I'm curious to hear his thoughts. I mean, he may not talk any more about the gameplay aspect of it, but I want to hear, you know, if they've said anything about the gameplay, if that's being mentioned in here at all. I don't know, but I think he's probably more going to be talking about his third point, which is the world.
When it comes to the social interactions, it is a dance between the developers and the players. A dev can guide players towards social interactions,
but they're gonna choose where they want to go.
They can annihilate them. And after that, the players usually find their own fun inside the MMO.
Yeah.
From that point on, the devs should do everything in their power to support the
that
players
fun.
having fun in their own way. And finally, when it comes to the world of an MMO, in Riot's case, it's done. And it's been finished for quite a few years now. In fact, the world of Riot's MMO is in such a good state. They already have the continents, the zones, the cultures, and the races.
That
to
is
a lesser
great.
degree, every zone already has its own storyline. Now, of course,
Sure.
unless you follow the lore of League of Legends, you wouldn't know about this. And that's why I decided to make this video. I want to show you all the zones we are going to see in the MMO and what sorts of quests we are going to do there. So
that 3D model, and I'm probably not going to pause it a lot during this video, but that 3D model that they were just using, is that, like, where is that from? Where did you get that from? Because that made me really hyped, honestly. Like, the weird, like, Game of Thrones-esque, like, panning from city to city and seeing all of it together. I was looking at that and I was like, oh, yeah, I want to play this League MMO, because those spots look awesome.
Oh, for the purpose of this video, I will assume you have no idea what League of Legends is about.
Okay.
You have no idea what the universe is about, but you like MMOs, your hairline is receding, and you have a crippling fear of Nintendo 64 controllers. To which, I might add, why do you think I'm wearing hats? But now, without further ado, let's have a look at all the zones in Riot's MMO.
Okay.
This is Runeterra,
world
of League of Legends.
I know some of this from the card game.
The world is separated into 10 main regions. But these 10 regions don't cover all the land on the map, so there are some mini-zones in between them. And the lore already revealed that there is gonna be another continent further to the east. That definitely sounds like a future expansion to me. In fact, it would be foolish to release all of these regions at launch. You can easily turn half of these into separate expansions. And because a lot of people already know and love these regions, the hype behind these expansions would be big.
Feels like Shadow Isles would be an expansion.
I know a lot of you would like to play as
from what I've
Shreemans
seen.
or Ionians. And now you may be cursing me for suggesting that these would be expansions. But the lore can justify giving you these nations as playable races without having their regions. I'll show you how Riot can pull this off in a bit. First, let's talk about the regions Riot's MMO has to start with. The Northern Continent. This entire continent is called Valorant.
I was thinking, I feel like Noxus is important from what I know.
Valorant. And this is where the absolute core of this world is. The two main regions here are Demacia and Noxus. They are the two big rivals equivalent to the Horde and the Alliance.
Okay.
While I would like to say that Demacia is your classic normie human region, it's not really true. Runeterra doesn't really have a normal place. There is something cool happening in every region. And Demacia has racism. Okay, maybe not racism, because Demacia doesn't mind Yordles or Minotaurs, but they really hate mages. That's because in the past, their rivals almost annihilated half of the world using magic.
Sounds familiar from Arcane as well.
Inside a magic-absorbing forest. Therefore, Demacia is a really cool place where you can hide from magic.
Okay, I'm really excited now to like learn about these places, because my phone dropped on the floor like 5 minutes ago and I haven't picked it up. I've done a bunch of videos now on reacting to these trailers, and it has been very cool to see like the different places, and I've been able to pick out like, okay, like I know Noxus and I know Piltover and Zorn because of Arcane, obviously. And I've known some of Ionia's vibe kind of because I play Yasuo in Legends of Runeterra, so like I've seen some of his cards and like the vibe that they have. Like I get like little bits and pieces, but I've never had like just been able to sit down and listen to an explanation of what all of these places are. And I feel like it could be really cool. So this idea already of like, this is a place that they hate mages, so they built their city within a magic, a magic repelling or whatever forest is really, really cool. And so now I'm excited.
Visuals of the zone, you can see a lot of lush fields. It is surrounded by mountains, but the iconic part of Demacia are the buildings. They are made of petricite, which is a combination of stone and the magic-absorbing wood. Because these ancient magic-absorbing trees were grey, all the buildings have a marble-like appearance. And yes, given what material they are using, all the buildings in Demacia also absorb magic. So should a mage visit this region, let's just say it's gonna be a painful experience. On top of this, let's not forget that Demacians can weaponize petricite. They can turn it into petricite steel, which gives you your classic anti-magic weapons, and you can sculpt petricite constructs which wake up after absorbing magic. Simply said, these guys just really don't like magic. The irony is, they've been absorbing it for years now. And this is where the story would kick in. You see, the Demacians are so afraid of magic, they founded the Mage Seeker Order. This is an order of people who hunt mages, they throw them into prison, and they torture them until their body gives up on magic.
Jesus!
So yes, being a mage is a crime in Demacia. The thing is, people still get naturally born with magical abilities. You can't stop it from happening. So not only are there mages hiding in the royal court, Right now, there is a mage civil war happening in Demacia, where mages and people who don't hate mages rise up to fight for moral rights.
Okay.
So should we do some quests in this zone? This is gonna be the core story.
That's
Mages
really
trying
cool.
to overthrow racist leadership following old laws. So the main enemy NPCs might be mages and witches. But I know what you're thinking now. And
do you?
don't worry. There will be plenty of boars to kill here too.
Okay.
Or at least there are loads of wolves here, as well as stags. And we can't forget
So you need the
iconic
low-level
Demacian
enemies
raptor.
to take
further
out.
to the south, we might find some crag beasts, tiny woolly elephants, and yes, of course in the Argent Mountains there are also dragons.
Ooh.
Loads and loads of dragons.
Okay.
But that's about it for Demacia. Fun fact, the capital city of Demacia is called the Great City of Demacia.
Makes sense.
Sounds dumb, but Runeterra was not the first one to come up with this. But thankfully the...
I mean, yeah, there's examples of that within our world as well. Like there are definitely cities that are named just straight up pretty on the nose names. Demacia already very cool, and like if this is supposed to be like the boring human-esque region, I mean he said that there isn't a boring human region, but if this is like the most simple region, then there could be like a lot of really cool stuff here. It also reminds me of in my D&D. I play D&D on the YouTube channel Dice Revolution every Sunday. Not every. We haven't played for a while, but we normally stream it on Sundays. And in our campaign 1, the main villains were called the Order, and they were like an anti-magic corporation. But the like irony with them was they would use magic, but they were using magic with the overall goal of eradicating magic. You know. So there was a huge irony there, but already I'm seeing Demacia and I'm thinking about my D&D campaign, and that's making me even more attached to it. So
other regions are a bit more creative with their names. So
Okay.
now let's move away from the normie region and
To
let's have
Noxia?
a look at the badass
Noxus, I mean?
region. Noxus.
yeah,
If you're planning on playing a warrior with
is
oversized
cool.
weapons and overcompensating lush hair, this is the region for you. This place actually has a long and badass history, but we really don't have the time to explain it now.
Fair
So
enough.
just know that originally it was built by the most badass warrior in the history of Runeterra. This motherfucker literally died on a mountain of corpses. And after he died, he was too angry to stay dead, so he just became the god of the underworld. When this guy lived, he built the Immortal Bastion, which is to this day the largest structure on the entirety of Runeterra.
The
And
Immortal
currently
Bastion?
he is banished underneath the Immortal Bastion, but only a few people know about it. So, you know, that's a future raid boss. Anyway, the Immortal Bastion is the capital city of the Noxian Empire, with Noxus being one of the most brutal nations in Runeterra. It is brutal because the nation is surrounded by rocky earth. It is hard to grow plants here. So Noxians are forced into conquering surrounding land for...
sorry, I need to go back because I got a little distracted because he's showing art that this is in Legends of Runeterra. This art, I don't know if that's all it's from, but like this is a card that I use all the time. It's like the something Marauder or something, and it like gets stronger and makes all of its same versions of that card stronger every time you attack, and it's a big part of my strategy recently. So I got very distracted and I stopped listening to him.
It is brutal because the nation is surrounded by rocky earth. It is hard to grow plants here. So Noxians are forced into conquering surrounding land for resources to survive. That's why when you go to the map, you can notice that the Noxian territory
has
is
a
all
lot,
over the place.
yeah.
It's because these are all the places Noxus has already conquered.
Interesting.
Although, when I say it like that, you may imagine Noxus brutally raiding everything. But that's not true.
Well, I saw a
They
trailer
like
and
to
they were
absorb
pretty
the surrounding
kind of
nations
okay.
into their empire. After all, it's just more human resources. Most of the time, they only remove the royalty and they let the leaderless people join their empire. And that's because
that's like that
Noxus
trailer I
values
watched.
strength above all, and rulers tend to not
This
be
trailer,
good fighters.
I love this
Is
trailer.
what you can see in the After Victory cinematic.
Yeah.
They kill the king because he was weak and let everyone else join them. Fun fact, conquering nations is so iconic for Noxus, they have their own saying. Kill them. until they are family. So when it comes to the quests in Noxus, it is most likely going to be helping the Empire expand its territory.
I loved that
Although,
trailer,
this
so I like
region
learning
has
more
its
about
own
that.
unique enemies too. Inside the Immortal Bastion, there is a cult known as the Black Rose. This cult is connected to the darkest of magics. So be ready to fight Hemomancers, witches, demons, and the Grey Legion, which is an army of soldiers revived with blood magic to fight for the Empire again. And when it comes to collecting 10 bear asses, here we have the native Drakehounds and Basilisks. Now, while Noxus and Demacia are the main rivals here, both of them are also constantly repelling raids from the north.
Okay, Freljord.
So now, let's have a look at the Freljord. Just like pretty much any region on Runeterra, Freljord has a long history. But for the purpose of this
pretty
video,
huge.
just know that the maddening old gods known as the Watchers of the Void, who want to devour the entire reality only because it keeps waking them up, once tried to breach into reality here. They almost succeeded because they tricked the Ice Witch Lysandra into helping them. Fortunately, she realized how wrong she was, and she managed to freeze half of the kingdom with the Watchers still beneath them.
Damn.
So these days, the Ice Witch is the only person holding back the end of reality by keeping the Watchers frozen.
Damn.
So at some point in
That's
the
crazy
future,
lore.
you bet one of these woken up frozen Watchers is gonna be a raid boss. Now, when it comes to the NPCs, this is where things get diverse. First of all, remember that the Freljord is brutally cruel. Everything is frozen, and survival is everything. So the first enemy here would be the wildlife. From Rhymefangs to Yetis to Druvasks to Elnuks to Mammoths to the worst of them all, Poros. Next, we are going to fight the Freljordians themselves. There are 3 main tribes here. The Avarosans, who are quite peaceful, the Winter's Claw, who are quite brutal, and the Frostguard, Lysandra's followers who hold back the Watchers.
Okay.
And let me tell you, these guys have some badass armor.
They
Among
do,
the
I was
notable
just
tribes,
thinking
there
that.
are also the Ursine, which are shamans who worship the Volibear, the primal god of the wild who slowly turns his worshippers into twisted animalistic monstrosities. Speaking of which, yes, there are also the primal gods of Freljord. And finally, we need to talk about the Iceborn. When the Watchers tried to arrive here, they tainted the ice around them. This special ice is called the True Ice. And it is so dangerous, you literally die if you touch it.
Okay. In the new trailer, the Welcome to Noxus trailer, was that what it was called? It was in the trailer for the new season. That was like, it was like an arcane epilogue type thing, is what people called it. But it had a guy with like ice, like an ice weapon or whatever, and he grabbed it, or he had to drop it, and then he grabbed it and still held it while doing a big swing with it or whatever. And I think people said in the comments that it was this true ice or whatever he said.
And it is the ice around them. This special ice is called the True Ice.
True Ice,
and
yeah.
it is so dangerous, you literally die if you touch it.
Okay.
However, the Watchers also tainted some people, giving them the ability to touch the ice. It is still extremely painful for them to hold a true ice weapon, but at least they can survive it. These people are known as the Iceborn.
The
But
Iceborn,
people
like
were
Mistborn.
not the only things that were tainted. There are also ice trolls, some of whom are also Iceborn. To be honest, these guys were made to have their own dungeon. But there are also some animals that were twisted by the Watchers. And Lysandra is even twisting some beings herself to make them serve her. So overall, Freljord is gonna have a lot of cool warriors,
Yeah, seems
shamans,
cool.
and horrors. So these
Very
are the 3
cool.
regions on the main continent. But this place is actually so big it can easily make the base world of the game. Especially since there are a bunch of smaller regions in between them. There is Nockmerge full of witches, Argent Mountains with their dragons, Tokgol with void monsters, Dalamore Plains with him, and so much more. But from here, you can cleverly set up the expansions because of how well everything is interconnected. So now, let's have a look at the continent to the east called
Ionia, the Japanese-inspired one,
Ionia
right?
has a very close connection to Noxus.
Or at least Asian-inspired.
You can only guess why. It's because Noxians once tried to conquer it all during an event simply called the Invasion of Ionia. This was a horrible war full of using children as soldiers because Noxians thought Ionians wouldn't fight back against children.
Damn.
And chemical weapons. Lots and lots of chemical weapons. Speaking of which, remember Singed from Arcane?
Yes?
He's the guy who chemically devastated Ionia.
Oh, okay.
Noxus failed, but they kept their
That's
small
crazy.
controlled territories. So the first quest here could be simply boarding a ship, sailing over, and exploring the place for the Noxian Empire. Now, when it comes to Ionia itself, the place gets mystical. Everything here is alive and connected to the spirit of nature. And I mean everything, from the animals to the people to the buildings. Everything is alive.
I've kind of
So
picked
if
up
you
on that
anger
from
Mother
one or two of the
Nature,
trailers.
Your house can twist and strangle you in your sleep. So you can only imagine how Mother Nature fought against Noxians. Usually a river came alive to drown them. That's why all the buildings here look like they were woven from wood. It's because they were. With nature
Reminds me
magic,
of the
people
Feywild.
let nature build their houses. It also means that sometimes your house can just walk away. When it comes
This feels a lot like the Feywild in Dungeons and Dragons. Because I ran a campaign once, the Wild Beyond the Witchlight campaign, which is a pre-written campaign in 5e, and yeah, in that, like, it's about the players going to the Feywild, and that, like, Feywild can do some crazy shit, and a big part of it is, like, the Feywild does specifically react to people's, like, emotions, and it does, like, react to things that are happening around them and stuff. So, like, sometimes the book specifically says, like, if people are acting incredibly angry or like there's a lot of emotion happening, the world might react to that. The plants might like shy away or wither a little bit, or like maybe they'll sway with happiness or like anything like that. And I can totally see in the Feywild absolutely places like houses getting up and walking away, stuff like that. Like there's like a walking tavern in the Feywild and stuff, I know. So yeah, this whole Ionia as a whole is reminding me a lot of the Feywild.
to the NPCs here, obviously there is gonna be a lot of nature spirits. And a lot more of simply mystical animals. From giant flying tigers to the never-ending story. But be ready to also face local Ionians, Blade Masters, Shadow Cultists, Murderers, and Ninjas.
That guy.
Both good,
Jin was his name?
bad, and the in-between. But finally, there is also one more enemy that we could face. The furries. That's right.
No!
This race is known
Oh,
as
yes.
the Vastaya. They are half humans and half magical animals.
It's very pretty
And
art.
yes, canonically, the species was born in exactly the way you are thinking.
Really?
But to be fair, the Vastaya are quite cool and they are definitely gonna be a playable race. Just like Yordles, who also like Ionia a lot. Lastly, after Noxians ravaged Mother Nature, demons started occupying all the places filled with misery and doubt. So that's gonna be a nice bonus enemy. So yes, the exploration of Ionia and the raid on the Shadow Order could be a really cool first expansion. But it's definitely not Riot's only option, because we can also go south.
Piltover and
Piltover
Zorn!
These are the
Yay!
ones people will know about,
Yep.
simply because
Of Arcane.
this is where Arcane took place. Piltover and Zone are two massive cities located one above the other. And they are so massive they could easily be turned into their own playable zones. They are both focusing on futuristic technology powered up by magic of the Hextech gemstones.
That's another Legends of Runeterra
Using
art.
this magic, they can power up anything from guns to augmented limbs to vehicles. Visually, it is simply futuristic Victorian era. And unfortunately, there wouldn't be much of enemy variety. We would likely fight the rich houses of Piltover and their deadly assassins, with the occasional thief on the streets,
And
corrupt
enforcers,
wardens,
yep.
and the occasional rogue steam golem. But things get a bit more interesting in the undercity known as Zone. Zone is the dirty underbelly covered in thick toxic smoke. Because the majority of people are poor here, they developed a cheaper alternative to Hextech called Chemtech. This artificial green stuff can power up cheaper limb replacements, as well as highly unstable weaponry.
Something that's really wow, that's a crazy image. Something that's really like throwing me right now is like I'm seeing a lot of art from Legends of Runeterra, art that I've seen 100 times from those cards being played on like in front of me, but I've never thought about the art in context. And so now him like talking about the lore and then showing an image that I've seen 100 times, like that image of the beggar on the street, this one here. I've seen this image so many times, so many times. I've never really like stopped and looked at it. I never even realized it was a Zorn card, honestly. And like now that he's talking about it in context, I'm like, wow, that like it's really cool. I can't wait to, after having watched this video, go back and play more Legends of Runeterra and have more context for a lot of these cards.
Zorn is also controlled by the Cam Barons, which are obviously gonna be the main
Barons,
enemy here. But on the side, we may also meet some chemical mutants, unstable constructs, as well as some mass murderers and people who hunt down mass murderers. And funnily enough, at the very bottom of Zorn itself, there are the hidden ruins of an ancient city full of traps. That is obviously gonna be a cool dungeon. So yes, there is not much more that I can add here. Piltover and Zorn were simply explored in Arcane. So if you like the series, you are gonna like this place.
Yeah.
From here, we can travel further south to Shurima.
Okay, this is stuff I
Shurima used to be
don't have
a
as much
massive
info on.
empire that ruled the world. But after the emperor got betrayed by his best friend, the entire empire collapsed. This region is a massive desert with the occasional city near a river. In the center of the region, there is the Sun Disk, a colossal piece of star metal that has the power to reflect celestial magic.
So I dislike desert settings a lot of the time. They're like one of my least favorite settings. But this Sun Disk area, I mean, I've said this in the other videos as well. This is fucking badass. That's incredible architecture. And I love, like, this image is so cool. Every time they show this in different art styles and everything, I always think it looks incredible. It looks amazing. So even though, like, I feel like this region, I would dislike exploring, if we were doing an MMO, I would dislike exploring out in the deserty parts, you know, and even like a lot of the city. But going to the city, if I just saw that as like in the MMO in the world, you know, I go to the city, I look up and I see that, I think it'll give me chills. I really would love it.
The Shurimans use this celestial magic to turn their best soldiers into the Ascended, also known as the Golden God Warriors.
Okay.
However, these God Warriors wouldn't make a great enemy here. That's because after the Emperor had died, the Ascended started fighting for leadership. And slowly, after learning how to use blood magic to gain the edge, they morphed their own bodies and became the Darkin. Twisted, blood-frenzied monsters that would certainly make really cool raid bosses.
Yeah.
Besides this ancient evil, Shurima is also full of its own animals, raiders, dune scavengers, and on top of all of that, void creatures. That's because
Jesus,
south
look at
there
that
used
thing.
to be a kingdom known as Icathia that wanted to destroy the Shuriman Empire. So, they asked the Watchers for help.
Oh.
You can imagine how that went. The
Shit.
Watchers sent through some void beasts that consumed Icathia and polluted Shurima to this day. To fight back the void, Shurima does have a lot of hidden tombs around with hidden god warrior weapons. Not to mention that Shurima also has a circle of time mages who are trying to freeze the void in time. Now, as I mentioned near the beginning of the video, even if Shurima becomes an expansion, they can still easily make Shurimans a playable race because they are already connected to Noxus. As you can see, of course, Noxians already conquered part of Shurima, so some Shurimans are fighting for Noxus.
Makes sense.
Also, as a cool fact, for those of you who liked Arcane, Hex Crystals are harvested in Shurima.
Oh,
That's
cool.
why a Shuriman expansion would be a great follow-up to Piltover and Zorn.
Okay.
And again, that's why Riot can easily turn only the northern continent into the base world.
It makes a lot of sense.
Going west from Shurima, we arrive at Mount Targon. This place is incredibly unique. First of all, this mountain is not natural. It was literally pulled up from the ground by celestial gods. And that's because this place serves as a portal to the celestial realm, also known as Targon Prime. Now, because this mountain was pulled up, it also has some unique features. For example, you may find frozen lakes frozen horizontally on the mountain.
That's crazy.
The very peak of the mountain is special too. Should a mortal reach the peak despite the brutal climate and the deadly wildlife, either they die from exhaustion, or the celestial gods deem them worthy and they become an ascended aspect. There is aspect of war, aspect of the sun, aspect of the moon, aspect of the twilight, aspect of the guardian, and so on. Simply said,
so much
people reach
lore
the
is
peak,
making
they
sense in
become
my
some
head.
of the strongest beings on the entire planet. So of course, the mountain is full of people who worship the celestial demigods. And I speculate this is where we could get a lot of cool armor sets.
Okay.
There are the Solari, who are devoted to the aspect of the sun. Then there are their rivals, the Lunari, who are devoted to the aspect of the moon. But also, the tribe I assume will become a playable class, the Warriors of Rakor. Of course, besides just humans, Targon also has all sorts of furry Vastaya. Near the bottom of the mountain, you may notice that the mountain is alive, but also there are Stellarcorns, a variety of mind-bending creatures, and loads of dragons. Speaking of which, remember that this place is linked to the Celestial Realm. So this is where we may also meet the star-forging celestial dragon Aurelian Soul, as well as all sorts of other celestial beings. A lot of these would make for interesting bosses. In fact,
like it. I can see that
Mount
being an MMO
Targon
boss.
would be a really cool raid. Next, on the other side of Shurima, there is Ishtal. This is a special place where people are mastering the elemental magic. They are using it for everything: fishing, smithing, walking, and this place is definitely gonna be saved for an expansion. Basically, remember when Icathian asked the Watchers for help? And then that happened? Ishtal was their neighbor, and after they saw the Void devour an entire kingdom, they believed the Void would soon devour the entire world.
Makes sense.
So, using their elemental magic, Ishtal built massive walls of plants around their entire region, isolating themselves from the rest of the world. For 3,500 years, Ishtal stayed isolated, believing that the world outside of their walls was devoured by the Void. But now, very recently, some mages found out that the world outside is completely fine. So now, the Ishtali mages are slowly revealing themselves.
Interesting.
To be honest, Ishtal is the most underdeveloped region in Runeterra. We know the region has a lot of hunting Vastaya, deadly plants, and some elemental dragons, but most of the region is still a mystery to us.
That, like, he says that, and like, yes, I can totally see, like, because I'd never heard of Ishtal before, and a lot of this imagery doesn't even look familiar to me. Like, him saying it's the least developed makes a lot of sense to me. But also, like, lore-wise, it makes sense that it's not developed because it's so isolated from everyone. Like, we don't know much about them, and they don't know much about us. Them being a mystery is very interesting to me. So, really cool.
So at least here, Riot will have the freedom to try something new.
Yeah.
But now, we'll leave the main continent to visit the last two
Bilgewater.
regions.
Yeah, this is where all the pirate stuff happens.
If you like pirate adventures, this is gonna be your place. This is where we are going to explore inns and gambling dens.
This is like Misfortune is from here, right?
Worshipping the god of motion, Nagake Boros. Here we are going to fight pirates, sea monsters, sea witches, sea Vastaya, maybe some demons.
And that guy, I love that guy.
Possibly we'll side with Sarah Fortune to fight the king of the pirates, Gangplank. But there's a lot more here. Last year, Riot released their RPG, which was set in Bilgewater.
Oh,
so not only
I didn't know about
can we
this.
already explore this place in detail, but it even has a monster journal. And at a quick glance, you can already see some really cool bosses too. However, this place is also linked to the last place I want to show you today, the Shadow Isles. See, every year the horrors of the Shadow Isles lurk out. And
we've seen a few
just
shorts
happens
in
to
the
be
Shadow
closest
Isles.
Place. So every year, Bilgewater is fighting the undead. Once upon a time, the Shadow Isles used to be the Blessed Isles, a rich place full of advanced magic. Long story short, there was a young asshole king who wanted to revive his dead queen. And in the process, he accidentally released Dark Necromancy.
Is this
magic.
Viego?
This magic destroyed the island and made it home for undeath. In the lore, this event is called the Ruination. And because the RPG is called the Ruined King, it may not be a surprise to you that you also get to explore the Shadow Isles there. And there they have anything you can imagine. Undead horrors creeping everywhere. And should we ever venture into these islands, I have no idea whom we're going to fight. The Ruined King who caused all of this is banished elsewhere. Thresh, who siphoned his magic after he was banished, also left the Isles.
Oh, so
and
there's not many
Hecarim,
around
the
anymore.
most brutal soldier of them all is currently around Demacia. So the Shadow Isles don't currently have a main baddie. So this
They
is
could
where
add some.
Riot could push forward some of the side characters.
Yeah.
Now, even though these have all been the regions that are currently set up on Runeterra, Riot has already confirmed that there is a new continent further to the east. Currently, it is planned to be revealed in the upcoming Ruination novel. And so far, we know that this new continent is where the Ruined King Viego is from. And this is also where he was banished at the end of his story. All we know
I
about
remember
the
that
place
trailer.
is that it is quite mystical. There are yet more dragons here, and in fact, Kamavor, which is the Ruined King's nation, has a lot of draconic armor. So should Riot run out of places to explore, don't worry, they
just
can
make more.
always make up more.
Yeah, why not?
But
They made up all of
I
it.
wanted to show you today. As
Wow.
someone who's been following the lore of League of Legends from the very beginning, I can tell you, I'm very confident the setting of Riot's MMO is gonna be great. Their incredible writers have been preparing the world for years now. And now, it's time to harvest the fruit. If you like this video, let me know in the comments below.
Amazing.
Because right now, I still have 3 more topics that I could talk about in regards to the MMO. I especially want to talk about the potential raid bosses we can face, and the potential classes we could play. And as someone who has collected an unholy amount of transmog, I would love to show you all the cool armor sets this universe has. But that's it for this video. See you in 6 to 8 years when the MMO gets released.
Yeah. And that was before it got, like, essentially delayed. Wow. Okay. Wow. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed watching that. I wasn't expecting to be drawn in as much as I was to that. But, like, as someone who, you know, I really like watching the trailers, and I really like, you know, I really love Arcane. Arcane's one of my favorite shows of all time now. You know, I really love all of this stuff, but I still, like, thought, maybe the overall League of Legends world, maybe I won't be, like, super interested in it. And sometimes what I need is something like this, where there's just a guy who is, like, who is really good at explaining a world in a simple and entertaining way, just standing there talking to me about it and showing me visuals, like keeping me engaged the entire time. He didn't waste too much time on anything. He did a very quick overview of everything, and I felt like I feel like I understand the world so much more than I ever expected I would. I loved that video. Wow. That, like, honestly, the world of Riot's MMO is already done as a title. Didn't tell me that that was going to, like, explain all of League of Legends world. You know, like, I mean, it's a good enough title because he has 2 million views on it. Like, he knows what he's doing. But yeah, I'm just very surprised at how in-depth and great that video was. Really, really well done from Necrit. The guy is very clearly very passionate about League of Legends and knows a lot, and he's a charismatic dude. So I'm genuinely, that video did a better job selling me on the idea of this MMO than I feel like any trailers for the game could have. Because now I'm just thinking in my head like, wow, there's so much potential for that sort of MMO. And I was thinking as that was playing out, like, oh yeah, it would be really cool to go to Noxus and be doing those quests in Noxus, and like all the scenery that it's showing. Like I was imagining seeing that scenery in game, you know, going from place to place, and like I was imagining the character that I would create, because sometimes I like to create a character that feels like they could live in the world and like kind of role play what kind of thing I would do within that world. And I was getting like in my head, I was getting fully into it, so much so that like I may have missed a line or two in there because I started to fantasize about this game. But now, I mean, he said at the end, like, I'll see you in 6 to 8 years when this game is whatever. But and he's right, because if theoretically they've like gone development back to early days, it's probably still going to be many years until we see anything from this. But man, this made me look forward to it. I want to see this MMO. I want to play it. So yeah, anyway, that's the world of Riot's MMO is already done by Necrit. Thank you so much for joining me. If you liked this reaction, if you want to see more of me watching either League of Legends related content or Necrit's stuff or anything related, make sure to let me know in the comments. Go check out some other videos of mine. I know this video is like just me watching another YouTube video, but I do like anime reactions, TV show reactions, One Piece reactions on my Jent Watches One Piece channel, and I do tend to, in TV show reactions, go more in depth on like character stuff and really get emotionally attached to a lot of the stuff going on. So if you like my vibe, then I think my TV show reactions are even a step up from that. So hopefully you'll enjoy those. But thank you so much for joining me for this video. Tell me if you want more, and if you do want more, tell me what you want. Go to my Patreon account if you want to support me extra and get more content, full-length reactions, early access, and exclusive videos. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.